The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
Taco Tuesday it was. Yeah. But on this show, we laid out some plans. We've got some fine guests later. Egberto Willies, he's going to join us. And he does a fine job. He's got his own political show, Politics Done Right, and a new book. It's worth it. Talking to the other side. And I wonder if we introduce Egberto to CJ, if you'd still hold that opinion. It's worth it. Until you meet CJ.
I
could be the subtitle of the book.
Or is it? Question mark.
A second edition printing. Egberto Willies. He's joined us live via StreamYard. He is Egberto Willies. His show is Politics Done Right. And he's got a new book. It's called It's Worth It. Egberto, welcome to the Devil's Advocates radio show.
It's my honor to be there, to be here. And I tell you what, love your state, Wisconsin. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. I actually visited Madison and, it was great. I had a great time out there for the Democracy Convention and for a couple of coffee party programs. So great state.
And your show plays out on KPFT. That's Texas-based. Are you based in Texas? Where's home for you?
Home for me is Houston, Texas. I live in the suburbs called Kingwood, Texas, and I've been here for quite a while now. And, we're just trying to make the best out of it out here, but we're doing it.
Same here, Egberto.
A difficult location to live as a progressive radio host, podcaster, author. That's going to be a tough. That's not Austin, and I know Harris County. I know Houston's relatively blue part of a very red state. But that's a damn red state, sir.
It is very red because of how they control things. If you take a look at the state proper and you ask the people what they really want, it's really not a red state. But it turns out that, as you guys know, with all the trickery that goes on, especially, that quite well in Wisconsin, especially what's going on with that judge, et cetera, that it's a difficult situation when they're really trying to stack the decks against you.
Yeah.
Egberto, I was counting your podcast. You're in the thousands, man. How long have you been doing this progressive talk thing?
Oh, man, a long time, over a decade now. It's sort of keeping that consistency going, getting people to get used to coming at the same place at the same time. So we try to keep that consistency up. But over 10 years, I started out doing it with a little station in Canada, internet station in Canada, and it migrated ever since to both Coffee Party, to the Pacifica Network, and these other places.
Now, Egberto Willies, our fine guest, when you're doing the show, and we try to do it open line style, and we try to be open-minded. We try to take all callers, all comers, but occasionally you get trolls. And I know you've written a new book, and I want to talk about it. It's called It's Worth It. And you think that we should be talking to our political opponents, but I don't know if you just heard from our pal CJ, man. This guy calls every day. There are guys that would wreck that notion, Egberto.
Yes.
There are people out there that would make you regret that notion. So how do you stay optimistic? How do you continue to have conversations across the aisle?
I tell you what, the listeners that I have, they get irate with me because they seem to believe that I give those trolls more attention than I give to them. And guess what? They're right. Because here's the thing that all of us do here, all of us in the progressive media. We know that we're going to get those trolls, right? But the other thing that we know is after we do a live show, even if we're getting one troll and a few people, there are thousands of people out there that are listening not only to us, but to the trolls. So the idea is I try to keep my composure with the trolls, knowing that there are a lot of other people that have the trolling idea out there, but that are a bit more objective and they are listening. So even though people get irate with you for dealing with the trolls and counteracting the trolls, the sensible right-wingers out there, a lot of times, because they get a new exposure, they'll say like, I never thought about this way. And how do I know that works? I have the letters to prove it. People would listen to a podcast that I've done, a couple of years ago, and they'll say, oh, guess what? Thank you. I never thought about that. I've changed this or changed that. Look, it's one person at a time. And I know it's hard as hell, but it's one at a time.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got a fine guest. He is Egberto Willies. He is the host of Politics Done Right, and he is the author of a book, It's Worth It. It's worth it talking to, let's say our political foes, people that don't see things exactly as we do. But, we've cut some people off, Egberto.
Yes.
We've got some former guests like U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, who was eccentric and, was anti-climate change and had many disagreeable political points of view. But we had the guy on 25, 26 times. And then January 6th rolled around. And there are a number of Wisconsin Republicans, especially, that find themselves fully embroiled in either a fake electoral scandal, or they wrote a letter to the vice president, or they were, and some to this day, still trying to overturn the election of 2020 in our state, sir. So it's very hard for us to find, let's just say, the common ground with those that are still trying to say it was rigged, it was stolen, and let's redo 2020. What's your thoughts on the G6 stuff?
I am glad that you said that, because Ron Johnson wouldn't appear on my show. The right-wing politicians wouldn't appear on my show, because I know that they know the truth. And I know that they are the leaders of the misinformation machine. So I leave them out. My ire is always left for them. When I'm attacking people, I never attack the MAGA conformist or the person who's been influenced by these guys, because I understand the psychology. The psychology is that these guys, they grab on to something. These guys have allowed them to grab on to something. So I give them no airtime. You won't see a Ron Johnson on my show, but you would see people who believe in Ron Johnson on my show. And I would ask them questions about why you do X, Y, Z. And many a times I have them answering their own questions. And a lot of times when there are two things that usually happens there, right? They answer the questions and find out that they're coming around to our position, or they realize what's occurring, and immediately I don't have to throw them off. They want to get the hell out of Dodge.
What about Joe Biden?
Yeah. Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right. So how do you, because, listen, I voted for a Democratic mayor of Milwaukee, for governor in Wisconsin, Barrett. Then a recall came around. I voted for Scott Walker, the Republican. A lot of my progressive friends, they get me on that. I was the MC for the 2016 Libertarian Party of Wisconsin's convention. So I've literally voted for Republicans and Libertarians and Independents and write-ins. I'm literally that guy. Okay. Right. Then I look around and I think, well, and I'm down for the conversation, and people can change their minds, and new information comes to light, or you have an epiphany about something. So I'm totally down with the conversation. But some folks, you're not going to convince. Some
right.
folks, if you're a paid Coca-Cola spokesman, you're never going to drink the Pepsi. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's some folks you never ever. They're not willing partners. They're not honest brokers. They don't want to be convinced. They want to shut you down. They want to throw a wrench in your gears. How do you differentiate between those folks and just regular everyday folks who just go to work every day, got a family and wife and kids or older parents or whatever the case, start trying to get through the day and barely have any time for this kind of political fever that we're into? How do you make that separation?
All right, there are the trolls, and the trolls are, I use the trolls. In other words, I use the trolls to convince other people. However, that section that you talk about, those people that are there that have no intention of changing, and not only do they have no intention of changing, they're attempting to shut you down. Those are the folks that I simply let go. And the reason why is that those folks generally also know the truth. I put them in the same category as I put a Ron Johnson in. These people know the truth. They are there as the salesperson of the lie. They are there as the salesperson. So I differentiate the trolls from those guys that you just mentioned there, because they're the ones trying to do damage. The trolls are really confused, and sometimes you have that little kid that's out there that just wants to kind of be the other voice and see that if they can pull your strings based on other things that they hear. I want to use those. I don't want to throw those away, because they make my show actually proactive to other people. And that's why in the book, what I did is the first sections of the book, I make sure to give the progressive message, right? In other words, why we stand for the things that we stand for. And I do it from a mathematical standpoint, an ethical standpoint, social standpoint, etc. And then giving the person who wants to do what I say to do, which is it's worth it. Talk to your right-wing relative friends and neighbors, because you then know the material. You can then find whatever modal you need to use as an approach to talk to folks.
I want to get your sense. Obviously, the former President Donald Trump interviewed on NBC recently, and I've given him some grief about that. Do you think it's wise and appropriate for national news media to continually bring people like Donald Trump and give them more airtime?
No. Remember, that's what I said. Ron Johnson wouldn't appear on my show. Neither would Donald Trump ever. If I were so honored to have a Donald Trump on, I would never, ever have him on my show. Because again, that makes me complicit in what he knows he's doing wrong. So no, guys like that, I wouldn't give them airtime. But the regular average American citizen, you would, if you have an ill person, I consider many of MAGA folks ill. In other words, they're really sick, right? Yeah. And as a human person, you won't harm somebody that's sick. You try to help them, and that's what makes me keep my cool.
Egberto, all the ivermectin they need, all of them. Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got a fine guest. He is Egberto Willies. He is the host of Politics Done Right and also the author of It's Worth It. Let me ask you, I see there is a little Made for Fox News event coming up. Gavin Newsom, who's taken this sort of pro-Joe Biden stance, and he's kind of there in the public conscience,
right?
Just in case, right? Just in case. And then there's this Ron DeSantis character who has been a failed presidential campaigner. I don't know if you recall Scott Walker's presidential campaign, but the parallels are obvious. This guy is Scott Walker 2.0. We've seen it since the get.
Yes.
But Fox News has created effectively a made-for-television debate between the governor of the state of California and the governor of the state of Florida.
Yes.
Egberto, should Newsom be playing along? Sean Hannity is going to be the moderator, for Christ's sake.
He shouldn't. I know Newsom is a smart guy, but it's rigged, and I wouldn't do it. No. And the reason I wouldn't do it is not out of fear, but how they're going to splice and cut whatever I say for the clips, the outtakes. It's not about the interview where he's going to clean their clots. It's about how they create the outtakes, and the outtakes are going to be hundreds and hundreds of clips that they can go ahead and change the outtakes to make it say something it didn't.
Well, let me ask you, Egberto, if Fox News comes calling, do you accept the invitation? I've personally been banned from that little 2-bit operation, but would you go on the Foxy News? What's your personal attitude?
Not to do a debate. I would go to Fox News one-on-one. If the host calls up and say, I want to ask you XYZ, I would say that, and I will make sure that my answers are in such a manner that you can't easily cut it to say what it doesn't say.
Well, I can tell you, have you been, because they really don't ever make it a fair fight. They sort of box you in. They usually put you on a panel, and they usually don't even tell you what you're talking about till like the bright lights are in your face. 3, 2, 1. We're talking about crash and grab in San Francisco, and why it's Joe Biden's fault. Defend him.
Yes.
I personally burned out on that little exercise. Now, occasionally C-SPAN. I'm waiting for the big call from MSNBC. No, maybe you know someone, Egberto.
Neither of us will get a call from MSNBC because we are straight talkers. I mean, you have somebody who actually voted libertarian here, and they will create some issues there. So no, they would never call. I don't think any one of us here.
Well, Egberto, that means you better sell your own book. How can people buy the book? It's Worth It.
You can go get links to the book at politicsdoneright.com/books. politicsdoneright.com/books. And you can find all my books there. It's worth it. It's worth getting that book. I can guarantee you that.
And if people want to hear your show, Egberto, how can they listen?
You can go to politicsdoneright.tv. politicsdoneright.tv.
Egberto Willies, thank you so much, man. I don't know if it's worth it talking to every single righty out there, but it was certainly worth it talking to you today. Really nice making your acquaintance, sir.
It has been my honor. Thank you so kindly.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.